Whenever there's a large amount of people gathering in a small area, something is bound to happen, whether it's good or bad. This is especially true for anime and comic book conventions, where fans gather together to meet and bond over their shared interests. But things can and do get out of hand. Today we'll be talking about 3 crimes that took place either at or around anime or comic book conventions, ranging all the way from arson to murder. Hello again everyone and welcome back to May's Mortem. My name is Mayfield and normally I would do more cult videos. I think I've done like 3 true crime videos in a row, but I had so many good prompts for true crime I just couldn't give it up. Besides, it's my channel, I'm driving the boat. Maybe next week or the week after I'll have a culty video for you guys. Now I know what you're thinking, wow May, are those Cheetos on the plate? Yeah. They are. Before we start, I need to make a disclaimer that this video is for educational purposes. Viewer discretion is advised because this video will have content concerning murder. Also, here's the outfit that I'm wearing today. The headdress and dress are from Angelic Pretty, and everything else is off-brand. It's hard to find yellow shoes, but I think the gold shoes really bring the outfit together. Now that all of that's out of the way, I'll pour the tea and we'll get into it. Let's go. Since I was about 14 years old, I've been going to anime and comic book conventions about once a year. They're a big part of my life, and I cosplayed a lot when I was younger. I don't really cosplay as much as I used to, but there are some conventions I'll never really forget. Back when I started going to conventions, they weren't really as well regulated as they are now. You used to be able to get away with a lot more stuff back then. Maybe one day I'll share my stories with y'all, but for now I'm going to share some stories that I found online. Let's start with the crime that almost was. It took place on May 27th, 2017 at a convention that was then called Phoenix Fan Fusion in Phoenix, Arizona. Our perpetrator is a man named Matthew Sterling who was then a 29-year-old living in Mesa, Arizona. He, like a lot of people, really enjoyed comic books, but it seems that he wasn't able to differentiate between fiction and reality. We now know that Matthew likely had an undiagnosed mental health issue, because at the time he had begun to believe that he was actually the comic book character, the Punisher. To be honest, I don't actually know that much about the Punisher, so if you see any parallels between Matthew's case and the story, let me know in the comments. Matthew, who was knee-deep in the world of comics in general, decided that he had a personal vendetta against the actor Jason David Frank. Jason was the actor who played the Green Ranger in the series Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Matthew claimed that he had actually stabbed Jason 15 years earlier but hadn't killed him, and he said that he now needed to finish the job. From what I understand, Jason had not actually been stabbed 15 years before this because when Matthew was arrested, he was 29 years old, so that would have made him 14 when he stabbed Jason. So yeah, I don't really think all of that happened. When Matthew heard that Jason would be at the local comic book convention, Phoenix Fan Fusion, he knew he had his chance. He went to the comic convention with a shotgun, 3 handguns, pepper spray, a combat knife, and throwing stars. Usually at conventions, they have these tables where they'll put tape or a zip tie or something on your prop so that whenever you're walking around the convention, other people will know you're not carrying a real weapon. Generally, conventions also require that your prop is made out of something like plastic or foam, like it can't be wood or metal. A huge part of cosplay is making your proper weapon that goes with your costume, so it's really important for convention safety to have these tables set up around the convention. This convention did have these tables set up, but whenever he got to the convention center, he just walked right by them. Which honestly, I'm kind of wondering how he did that and got away with it because he had a shotgun. Those are pretty big, right? Like, I don't know, but right? It does seem like some people were initially suspicious, however. In these pictures taken from CCTV footage, you can actually see people either like looking at him like, what is that, a real gun? Or it seems like someone actually tried to stop him at one point and ask him about it, because he does have the weapons just like all over himself. He's also wearing a gas mask, which was a little suspicious even at conventions before the pandemic. Matthew then walked up to the second floor of the convention hall where he sat on a bench to wait for the right moment to strike. So Matthew believed that there were good cops and that there were bad cops, and he called these bad cops Aphrodite officers. He said that these Aphrodite officers had kind faces and looked normal, but that they were actually bad, and that he himself could be the only person to determine who was an Aphrodite officer, and that if he did find one, he would have to kill them. During this time where he's sitting on the second floor on this bench in the convention center, he's actually texting a friend of his. He's telling this friend what he's going to do. He was sending his friend pictures of police officers that he had taken around the convention, telling them which ones he was planning to kill. He told them that he was ready to have a showdown and that he wasn't going to go down without a fight. This scared his friend, obviously, and so they alerted the police, telling them where he was and what he was planning to do. Given the obvious urgency of the situation, local authorities responded very quickly. Whenever the officers finally got to Matthew, it took a few of them to subdue him because he was a pretty strong guy. However, he was eventually taken into custody. After having him in custody, the true nature of what he was going to do at the convention was finally discovered. He actually had a list of people that he was planning on killing at the convention. He had even posted those pictures of the cops he had taken to his Facebook page. He was wearing body armor under his shirt, and he said that all of his weapons were actually for self-defense. But this was quickly discovered to be untrue because he actually had a notification in his phone calendar that said "Kill JDF." JDF being the Power Rangers actor we mentioned earlier, Jason David Frank. He also believed that after he killed Jason, this would make Jason's wife and child very happy. In the end, Matthew was actually charged just a few days ago with 25 years in a state hospital. I think anybody could have seen how horrible that situation could have gone, so I'm glad that ended up being better rather than worse. Our next crime takes place at Anime Los Angeles in 2019. I actually remember hearing about this one through the grapevine, if I remember correctly. Attendees of the convention were stunned when 7 cars in the parking lot of the Zero Hotel in Ontario, California were lit on fire. When the manager of the parking lot watched the security footage of the incident, he said he saw a man pour 2 cans of gasoline on a vehicle before lighting it on fire. The fire ended up being so out of control that it spread to other cars in the parking lot. The car that was originally lit on fire belonged to a girl named Julia who was a cosplayer attending the convention. But why would somebody burn her car? For a year, up until this point, Julia had actually been severely stalked by a 27-year-old man named Matthew Toyotome. Which is like, wow, another Matthew. Watch out for those Matthews. Julia's boyfriend told the media that it started as online pestering but quickly became a very life-threatening situation for her. Matthew had even previously threatened Julia, saying that he wanted her dead. Like, can you imagine? Ugh. Because of the very obvious camera footage that was taken of the incident, Matthew was quickly arrested, and to this point, I think he is still in jail. This whole situation must have been horribly terrifying for Julia, but the local cosplay community did come together and donate to a GoFundMe so that she could get a new car. I checked the GoFundMe and it seems like it went pretty well, so yeah, good on you, Julia. Here's to you, sister. Hope you're doing well. Our final crime ended up being pretty messy. Kind of an understatement, honestly. Also, I need to preface this case by saying I'm probably going to mispronounce people's names. I'm going to try very hard not to, though. On April 23rd of 2016, 2 brothers were attending the anime convention called Kraken Con that was held in Oakland, California. Everyone said that they were acting normal and it seemed like they were having a good time, but in reality, their parents had just been murdered back in their home in San Jose. The brothers' names were Hasib bin Gholam Rabi, who was 22 at the time, and then he had his brother who was Omar Gholam Rabi, who was 17. They had murdered their parents Gholam and Shamima Rabi before getting in the car and driving to Kraken Con in Oakland. Because anime conventions are all weekend affairs, the boys were there all day Saturday and all day Sunday as well, leaving their parents' bodies at home unattended. By late Sunday evening, the boys' relatives had actually been trying to get a hold of their parents for multiple hours to no avail. Gholam was also supposed to go to work that day, but he never showed up. When the relatives tried to contact the brothers, they said that they would come home, but they just never did. After waiting for hours for the boys to come home, they ended up letting themselves into the house where they found the bodies. When the police arrived, they noted that Gholam had been shot over a dozen times. Meanwhile, Shamima Rabi had only been shot once. There were also cryptic messages written on the walls of the home in black ink. They read, "Sorry my first kill was clumsy. Take care of your brother or he's next. And I can't be like you telling a lie. I can't love someone without telling them." The handwriting on the walls was consistent with both Omar and Hasib's handwriting samples, which leads us to believe that both of the boys were responsible for these writings. The police knew that the boys were likely behind the murders, so they were quickly arrested and questioned. During the interrogations, Hasib said that someone had broken into their home and forced him to shoot his father. Then he claimed that he didn't see how his mother died and that he doesn't know what happened to her. Needless to say, that story was completely unbelievable to everyone who heard it. It appears that the truth was quickly discovered when Omar gave his testimony. He said that the murders began when Hasib shot his father multiple times and that there were no other intruders. After Hasib killed their father, he told Omar to go close all of the window curtains, which he did. After this, Hasib killed their mother as well. After Hasib shot his parents, they ended up keeping the bodies in the garage of the home. Before they left for the anime convention, Hasib told Omar to go check the bottom of the garage door to make sure no blood was coming out from underneath it. Which is like, oh my god. After this, the boys drove to Kraken Con, where they stayed for the weekend before returning to San Jose. The weird thing is that when they returned to San Jose, Omar was actually dropped off 2 miles from the home and he was like walking home from that point, but Hasib was nowhere to be found for a while. Omar even went to school the following Monday and his classmates said he was fine, if not very quiet. In the end, both of the boys were tried as adults despite Omar only being 17. Omar ended up not being charged with anything because of insufficient evidence. But before all of that, Hasib had actually tried to convince the jury that his brother Omar was really a psychopath who had convinced him to confess to the murders. This was deemed untrue, and Hasib ended up getting a life sentence for first-degree murder. No motives were ever confirmed for this case, but people did mention that Hasib did have problems with his mental health, but it's not like that makes you murder your parents, you know? I guess in the end, we'll never really know. Despite anime and comic conventions being generally chaotic, they are mostly safe. I think the most dangerous thing I've ever seen at a convention was probably cake being thrown from a balcony. If you're a parent or you're worried about someone who's going to an anime or comic book convention, please don't be. Conventions are just filled with nerds trying to have a good time. Well, I think that's it for this week's video, guys. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. As usual, please hit like and subscribe and share with your friends if you feel like it. I'll see you again next week, okay guys? Bye!